Do you have a plan to replace your senior staff or important staff members, or even yourself? Hello, Camp Mavericks. Welcome to the CampHacker Podcast. My name is Travis Allison. I run a consulting company that deals with marketing and strategies, and I help camps translate what they do so that more families insist on sending their children to summer camp.
Hi, everyone. My name is Chris Hudson. I am a social worker and the camp director of Camp Highlight, a sleepaway camp for kids who have LGBTQ parents. It's also the best camp in the world. I live in New York City, and I'm happy to be here.
And I can't wait to visit the best camp in the world. My name is Gabrielle Rail, and I am one of the camp directors at Camp Waro, an all-girls camp in the Laurentian Mountains of Quebec, Canada. And we focus on creating a positive environment for gender minorities.
My name is Joe Richards. I'm the executive director of Pierce Williams Summer Camp and Retreat Facility, which is a United Church of Canada affiliated and part of the United Church of Canada's camping network.
Excellent. Welcome, everybody. Grateful to have everybody here. For those of you who are watching us on YouTube, we invite you, if you enjoy the show, to click subscribe to get this and other CampHacker Go Camp Pro podcasts and get those automatically delivered to you. Or if you're a listener, we would be so grateful if you gave us a little review. You can go to ratethispodcast.com/camp and then click the ratings and review button and leave us a review of how you thought this show was, or how Go Camp Pro and CampHacker does in general. So we want to talk today about succession planning. And we've actually been quite excited, the four of us, in talking about this before we recorded. We all like, no, we'll stop and we'll put this in there. There are several points to this. We've talked a lot, very recently, in fact, about delegating. But this is talking about the delegating to the nth degree, handing off something that you've been responsible for a long time, something like in Chris's case, something that he co-created. And thinking about some of those positions. So just starting to think about someone to be on permanent year-round leadership at your camp. I want to talk about some other jobs, but all that. I want to just start by saying that I often think, as a camp director, we naturally think about raising campers to become staff. It's not the case in every camp, but for lots of us, we are sort of consciously preparing campers to become staff members. One of the switches that Beth and I had after being camp directors for so long is that we realized that our legacy was more like we were raising camp directors. So we have 11 camp director progeny so far. There will be more, I'm sure, who were staff with us, who were campers with us, who go on to be camp directors. But we know of 11 people that we raised at camp who went on to be camp directors. And that change of mindset was an interesting realization and an interesting change of mindset for us in thinking long-term and what our impact was. So that impacted how we thought about people and recognized them, etc. So I guess the first thing is, what do you look for? What are you looking for when you are thinking about someone who could be a new year-round staff member who, potentially in the future could become your own replacement? What sort of things do you think about, Gabz?
Well, I have been thinking about this for quite a while. I'm in a family business. My folks were young-ish when they had me. So there's only a 22-year difference between myself and Jackie, which in some ways was very beneficial. Once we were camp professionals together, I was able to have her as my teammate for over 20 years of my professional camping career, and learn from her. And, that has been so amazing. And for me with camp, what I have been thinking about over the past 5 years is, I was looking for that one. I was looking for who's going to take over from me. And I realized I had to shift tactics and think about maybe what could that look differently? Is there a team that could collaborate together, that could be passionate about camp, but perhaps have another career or share some of the responsibility. So it's rethinking our organization, and it's rethinking how we lead our organization. And my anxiety has gone down so much once I shifted my expectations in this sense. I really need to build more of a safety net and not just a singular safety point, if you will. I don't know what a safety point is. Yes, exactly.
Right. I like that. That's really smart. How about you, Joe? What are you thinking?
Well, I think succession, as someone who's gone through a lot of staff changes recently and has nobody in a queue to sort of come into senior staff ranks at this moment in time, right? I think that we Pierce Williams has always been a camp that relies a lot on internal staff to just grow, right? So camp staff grow year to year, and they have things that they can reach for. And what happened to Pierce Williams from a summer camp staff perspective for leadership team, and then up until 2013, we only had summer directors, right? They were university students, and when we moved to having a full-time director, it actually hindered our leadership team's growth because sometimes those people want to be a camp director, right? They see that as an end goal. But then when you take away that sort of mountaintop that they what are they striving to be? The program director? Are they striving to be the camper counselor care coordinator? And so we're at the point where we're reintroducing that role as a part-time role. And I think about myself as well. I think about the fact that I think a lot about institutional knowledge, right? What is the knowledge that is had and needs to be shared? But like Gab, it doesn't need to be the exact same position. So we've also last Monday we started a new position at Pierce Williams, and it's a position that simply didn't exist before. And it's a merger of two positions, but then it's a bit of those things. And I think with succession, it's about knowing that whoever that person is after you, whether you have the ability to help them or not help them in the role, knowing that they will succeed or they won't fail because of you. Like, that's part of succession, right? Is that even if you leave on bad terms, you don't want the organization to fail if you have it in your heart. And so as a nonprofit, I have slightly under 15 years left until our 75th anniversary here at Pierce Williams. And so that's what I've set as my retirement date. Right. Because my wife will be retired by then. And it's something that the board can aim for, and we know, and it's something that we can go. So succession is something I think about and want to make sure that I leave it better than I found it, and that it can grow when I'm gone.
Nice. Chris, what sort of things are you looking for or thinking about in succession?
I think about this constantly. Our camp is pretty young. It's 12 years going, and I've been at the head of the entire time. And, I'm not announcing here today that I plan on leaving soon, but, over the past couple of years, I've noticed that the mattresses at camp are just a little thinner every year. My back hurts a little bit more every single year, and like when you're walking down the path and like the 8-year-olds see you coming and they go, Chris, and they all run and they all jump on you. I just, the knees, like I can feel it. I was like, this role, like this person cannot do this job like 10, 15, I probably have like 10 to 15 more years of doing it this way before I need to transition. And so maybe it sounds like, well, this is like a down the road problem, but it's not, because we have been trying to, for a couple of years now, like identify people. We're like making stratifications in the hierarchy, like putting more people between us and staff, making more senior positions, more assistant senior positions, in the hopes that we can entice people to want to like step up. Haven't had that yet, and I think the challenge that we have is that our program is short. It's year long in that we have something happening every season, whether it be a family camp, which we're expanding to twice a year now, or the actual camp. Then there's like monthly get-togethers with parents. Like there's programming that's happening, but it's hard to convince someone to want to like do all the parts of that. So we have assistant, we have senior positions now, and those people are fantastic. And they've been with us for like 10 years and they seem really excited, but we're at this impasse now. And so it's something that I'm thinking about. What I'm looking for, first of all, is someone who has a passion for our mission and bringing this community together. And someone who can, this is the thing, this is what I'd love to discuss with all of you, is that I've often said this, I've said this in interviews before. If I walk away from Camp Highlight and it collapses, what a failure. What a waste of my time.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've wasted everyone's time, right? Because I'm not trying to make Camp Chris Hudson.
Right.
Just like,
Yeah,
if I could not make something that would endure past me, then I've wasted my time.
Yeah.
So it's really important to me that someone understands the mission and understands that this needs to roll forward and this community needs to be here. And that it's a great time, but also a ton of work. Travis, you had said like grooming young people to become staff. We never think about that. We are actually not, encouraging our young people to become staff. They all want to. And in the few cases where they have been, it hasn't worked because Camp Highlight, here's our secret. It's akin to Disney World. Like the front of house and the back of house look very, very different. And we do such a good job on these kids that they swear that the back of house is as fun as the front of house. No, it's not. Yeah. We're all screaming and crying backstage constantly, but then we get out there and, we do the whole dance and the kids love it. So we're actually looking for people who want the commitment to hard work and stuff. And our kids are not necessarily our go-to, honestly, because maybe when they're much, much older, but not right now.
Is there a leadership transition program, like a CIT or LIT program?
Funny you should say that. So about 5 years ago, we started the Highlight Leadership Academy. And it was start off as a CIT program, but then it came back to some of the things I was just saying. I was like, well, do we want to prepare our kids to do childcare? I'm passionate about childcare and outdoor education and moral education. I'm passionate about that. Is the expectation that everyone who goes to this camp is going to be passionate about that? No. Our leadership academy focused on things like public speaking and collaboration and facilitation and like skills that would be useful to them anywhere that they go. So it prepares them to work in groups, but not necessarily around like caring for young people. That's not everyone's bag. We need a whole podcast on my feelings about that. But the expectation that just because you're older, you can take care of people younger, I think has done far more harm than good. So we don't have a CIT program generally.
I find it, I think what you're bringing up is really interesting because we all have different camp cultures and no, well, I was going to say no camp culture is wrong, but that's actually not true. Some camp cultures are, and they can be harmful. But I think also what we're saying is maybe we have to look at not necessarily typical or traditional ways of succession and, creating a leadership program for kids that are interested in doing what the staff members did for them. That can be part of a program that you build if that's something that you're interested in. But that's not necessarily the case for every camp. And that's true. And I think for me, there's an element of when we're looking at succession, I truly feel that my first role in fully taking over this organization is figuring out how I can retire. That's my number one job, is how can I leave? And I think that with some of camp professionals that I meet, that are younger individuals that are excited and willing to take the mantle, sometimes they're blocked by those maybe the board or those executive directors that have a hard time letting go. And I wonder if we can create a better conversation between those people that are maybe holding on a little too tight to the individuals that are excited to help out and take over and learn from you.
What do we say to, or what do we do about the people holding on too tight? Because that's the other thing that I've recognized. Like I said, like if the camp can't exist past me, like then I failed. Like, right. I'm so curious, people holding on that tight, like what is I wonder what the thought process is. Like, well, if I let go, it's going to spin off. Like, it's not going to work. It's just going to fall apart. Like, I'm just curious, because to me, it seems like that's such a clear, like you said, like your job when you're in this position is like, how do I transition out of this position? That's what I'm thinking on day 2 of the job, because like, I can't do this forever. I'm just curious. What do you think is, Joe, what do you think is going on for people who can't set this up for themselves?
I think it's a danger that they're just unaware of, or that their ego doesn't let them get to, right? The idea that this happens in camp directing, this happens in farming, as someone who came from a farming background. When's a farmer retire? When they die, right? Like that's the, that is the joke.
Oh my God, the drama of that.
Recently in Ontario, there was a Skip Connett passed away, and I worked with Skip for a summer in '99, and yeah, what is he's a gentleman in his 80s who doesn't have a clear succession plan ready at camp, right? And that's where you see we have some mentors. I certainly have some mentors in the OCA and the Ontario Camping Association who are retired camp directors who just walked away, right? They sold their camp to someone who was passionate about camping. So they knew that this thing they'd given most of their life to would go on. And then they walked away from it, right? They didn't stay involved. They didn't stay as an investor. And I think that in succession planning, another, in nonprofit, it's different than in a private case. And in the nonprofit case, and this is a mix of private and nonprofit. Some private owners talk about moving their camps to nonprofit so that it can have a life after them. And they think that will make it more successful. Whether it does or not, I don't know the case study and the histories of it. But the reality is that you, in the nonprofit world, once you leave as an executive director, you have to trust that you left everything good enough for someone else to do it, and that the board has chosen the right person.
Yes, I mean, sorry, go finish your thought, Joe. Sorry.
Well, and then go and then leave and then not be involved, right? Is the ideally, because if you stay too involved, even if you've been there like myself for, almost 20 years, if I stayed too involved after I retired, then the new person would never be able to take it on themselves, right? They would always have this, well, Joe's looking over my shoulder. Yeah, because you're short, but beyond that.
Oh, man.
There we go. I don't know where I was going. I had
Oh no, you lost your train of thought.
Yeah.
You totally had something.
I saw
it.
I know, it was great. He's going to set up the next 10 minutes of this conversation. I have no idea.
I did have something with what Joe was saying, where maybe it's ego that gets in the way, or maybe it's just that you're not aware of the quote unquote threat. What is your end goal? And I think, like, for Chris, your end goal is that it continues. I certainly do not think that if Camp Highlight stopped, it was for nothing. Of course, all the kids and the staff members that were close to you have had a positive impact, and you've had a positive impact on them. But my goal also is for our organization to continue beyond me. And I also know camp directors that just walked away by selling the property, and they were done with that. So what is your goal? What is your end goal? And if it is for the organization to continue, but you're having a hard time, a sure way of setting up somebody for failure or for difficulty, I shall say, is not involving them in day-to-day decision making. It's not involving them in the behind the scenes. That is a sure way of setting somebody up for difficulty, not failure,
yes,
but
for sure.
difficulty. And if you do want your organization to continue, that's a serious conversation we need to have with ourselves. What are we afraid of? Does it have to do with our ego? Does it have to do with, well, it's not going to be as good as how I usually do it, which, spoiler alert, it won't be. You'll have to tolerate that, learn to tolerate imperfections.
Well, it would be different. right?
It will, well,
be
it will be
different.
different. Sometimes it will just not be bad, but if people are safe, it's okay, you know? But I think this is where you do have to have that hard conversation, or have somebody check you to have that hard conversation to say, you know, why am I not letting people in? Or, you know, there is a gift, a small, very slender silver gift when it comes to your body getting the aches and pains, or energy is lower, because it does tell you you're not going to be here forever. So it does give you that little ping of what's going to happen next. And so I think, you know, checking what that fear is, your ego, but starting with what's your end goal. If you're fine with just walking away and leaving whoever comes in next, and for them to run it the way they want to, and you not be part of that, that's fine too.
I love that could be a question to like ask like your senior staff and the people who've been around. Like, if I wasn't here, what would this experience, how do you think the experience would change for you? If someone else who is capable came in, right? Because let's assume, I'm curious, because I wonder what that reflection point would give to someone. Like, you know, we became aware at Camp Highlight a couple of years ago that so much of the director's personality was guiding the culture, but not just the culture, but also our processes, to the point where we didn't have stuff written down. Like, positions were very much idiosyncratic based on people's personality or their relationship to us, not necessarily existing on their own. And we steadily had to change that. And we asked that, not exactly the question I posed earlier, but we're asking the question like, okay, well, let's say the arts and crafts person wasn't, you know, your mom.
Yeah.
Jackie, the director, the arts and crafts person, is her mom and has been her mom since the beginning, you know, and her mom is certainly getting older. And we're faced with the question, well, what does this department look like?
Right.
You know, like, and we asked staff, like, well, what would it be like if Mona wasn't running arts and crafts? And it's been really interesting what comes back. Well, I don't think the kids would like it as much. I don't think this is all very useful feedback. So I think that might be a good question for camp directors to start asking themselves, and asking the people around them, not themselves, because we can talk ourselves into anything. But like, if I wasn't here, well, how do you think the program would be impacted if someone capable came in? Not me, but someone capable.
Joe?
I think that part of there's a few things that came up there, Chris. Someone capable, and the trust that you put in them, right? So part of camp culture is this idea that if I choose someone to be in a position, I'm giving my reputation to them, to our community, right? So I hired a brand new person to work at Pierce Williams who has no Pierce Williams experience. And so there's a lot of things I need to be fully aware of. And this is a full-time position. But because I hired him, right, and my board and I hired him, then the staff can know that I have faith that this is a person who can do that job, right? And that's something we've always had. The idea of asking yourself and asking the staff what they want out of their position, where they see things, it reminded me, excuse my cough, it reminded me of a few years ago, I started when we had regular camp. I started a little mini session that I would lead with campers called My Future at Pierce Williams. And it was to help campers figure out what their path was, right? Like I can be a camper, I can be a leadership team, or a leadership camper, I can be a CIT, then I'd be a staff. Oh, if I have a staff, here's my names that I might choose, right? Camp names. And it just gave them a timeline that I can take a copy of and keep sharing with them every year to be like, hey, remember, here's your timeline.
Yeah.
And I
keep interrupting you. Please.
And so I created this.
Write down your thought, Travis, please.
And we had people fill it out. But the other thing about a new person is that I have zero knowledge that I'm trying to hide from him. I know his goal is in the future to own and run his own camp. I have zero knowledge I'm hiding. I'm like, here you go. Take it all. Take it all. Because like Travis and Beth, you realize once you've done this long enough that you just have progenies are out there in the wild directing camps. And some of them you're surprised by. You're like, how did they get a job as a camp director? But more power to you. They must have learned something, and they go from there. So it's share, right? Like, this is make sure that you know what people want, what their goals are, and then help them get there.
I want to hammer home one of your points, Joe. It is so incredibly smart to me because I've been there on the day when you were working with those kids on their camp timeline. And that is so smart to me, your ability to go back to that and remind them. This can always change, but this is what you're thinking of. Like, it's just kind. You're basically creating a system of kindness and having them thinking about their future at camp and all of that. And that's so smart. Everybody should be doing this. That's such a great thing from Joe. And it reminds me of another idea that I've been thinking about, talking about. I often get asked to speak about how to have a good alumni group, like how to build a good alumni group. And it comes down to a lot of little things that we've been talking about. It's really summed up well in Joe's timeline exercise. But I think it's up to us to train our campers to be, and staff to be, good alumni when they're campers and staff. If we train them that alumni means important things to our community, that we honor them, that they have taught a lot, that we recognize them for, for the things that they've done. And I've come by that because I have gone back to camps that I've worked at before and have had their director say, "This is Travis, and this is what he did here." And it's an amazing feeling. So that's one thing, is just to get people thinking beyond what their current camp experience is, train them to think about that. Same way with staff and potential, future careers in camp directing. Had a lot of people say, I'd love to be a camp director, but it's not really a real career. And I've had to say, no. There are lots of great ways you can do this, but it helps to have that conversation when they're little. When they're little, when they're in their teens, to say, you can have a future at camp, you could have a future here. And I think another element to smart succession, especially if you're really thinking, we haven't talked about external candidates, that's a whole different bag, but thinking about internal candidates, I think it's really important to stress to them that they need more camp experience than just our camp experience. That they need to see how other camps go. They need to have that mindset that, that their camp is not the end all and be all, that there are other ways of doing things. Some will be a lot worse, but there'll be other little nuggets you pick up that we need them to go and try those things out. So I think that is a really important piece of this, is how do we get them to learn from us, but how do we get them to learn from the rest of the camp world? Whether it's conferences, whether it's working at other camps for a season, going away and working for somebody else for a couple of years and getting the skills, because you're not ready to leave. And you have to let them go, because you don't know if they'll ever come back. But if they do come back, they'll be a lot smarter for it.
And just to add one small bit, succession planning should start young, right? We should start. I was surprised when I first started leading these sessions with campers about my future at Pierce Williams. And we'll make that available as a download in the show notes. I pulled it up in my CorelDRAW design software there, Gab. I was surprised that, like, I had 10 campers around the table, and 2 of them, it was their first week ever at camp.
Yeah, brilliant.
Because that's the strength that being at camp has on kids, is camp is this magical place that they've never been to. And they're like, yeah, I want to plan how I can be like this for the rest of my life. And I was shocked, because I thought it would be all previous campers, and no, and it was great. So succession starts young, right? Get people thinking about these things. And to your final point there, Travis, my daughter approached me this summer and said, how can I direct camp? And I said, well, you need to go see other camps, right? Like, you need to go work at other camps. You need to go be at other camps. I'm pretty privileged to have friends in camping that I could send, Kayla away
siblings
yes.
in camping.
Well, would I send them to my siblings' camp? That's a wholly other question. That'll be a test to see if Brother Dan actually listens. Yeah. But yeah, getting experience. You don't get everything just by being at one place your entire life. Sometimes it works, but you also get tunnel vision sometimes.
Definitely. Even to send people away for them to say, yeah, I definitely don't want to do things this way. Like, that's a good lesson. I like that. What are you thinking, Chris?
Same thing. Like same thing. We our camp goes to 17, but you have to be 19 to work there, and that's intentional because we don't want you rolling off of camp and then rolling into employment. It doesn't work for us. Like you have to go do something else with, you've been doing this since you were 8, do something else with your summer, and then bring that something else back to us in a year. The kids hate it, but love it. It's great for us.
I wonder if I like that works for Highlight, because I wonder if that idea of having people go away and come back later, or kind of that's the system, is that you go away. I wonder if some of that is leading to some of the staffing struggles that people are in right now, because they haven't maintained the connection to those people who know their camp and would be great. And I totally get that works for Highlight, but that's just one of the things I've been thinking about for some of the other camps. That's their policy. You can't.
But let me flip that for you,
please. Yeah.
If a year off of camp, something that you've been doing for your entire life, is enough to make you not want to return, that's not the staff member you want, is it?
I think it's a totally great point. I don't completely disagree with you, Chris. I just feel like, I think for me, it's we cut you off and then we'll let you wander back, versus please go do this other thing. Like, please grow and we'll keep in touch. We want to be connected to you. We want you to be part of the community.
So it's the tone.
Yeah. Yes, totally.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I hear that. I see that.
Yeah.
I agree. I see that.
One of the things that I'm hearing, and I'm open to being challenged on this as well, is that it's hard to prepare for this on your own. Like we need to be thinking about this and starting early and all those things. And we all know that there are bucket loads of stress, multiplied in the last few years in this job, and so sometimes there just isn't time. And I really wonder about the value of bringing in outside help, whether it's just a mentor or a peer that that you can just have coffee with and just talk it through, and ask that person to challenge your assumptions, ask that person to be your foil for all good ideas. And obviously you have to pick someone who will approach that in a way that you need, because you can pick wise people who would challenge in ways that you don't need, or bringing in outside help. I've often said that one of the things I'd love to do is be like a transition camp director and just go to camps for a couple of years, get them to their next full-time long-term person. I'm the only one in my household who likes that idea, so it's not going to happen. But it's one of those ideas I really like. It's like, I can be that person to come from the outside and challenge why we do things, challenge a person to write, everybody to write stuff down. I don't think you have to hire that
professional person or like a colleague, because we all have camp director families that I feel like we turn to informally about this stuff. But you mean someone like professionally to come in to set up a system of like interview and assessment and evaluation.
I do mean that, but I recognize that that's not possible for lots of smaller camps, smaller budgets, etc. In which case I'm saying you could rely on a friend or have a team to push you on this, or you could have a mastermind group of other camp directors who you all take turns pushing each other on this. Like, what have you done for succession planning this month or this quarter? And have some accountability for that. But I think that the pressure and accountability comes from outside. If it's a professional or it is a peer group that you're very intentional about, both could accomplish the same thing. I want to thank the three of you for talking this through with me today. I appreciate the topic, and I think it's important. So I'm grateful to all of you for your wisdom on this. And it's awesome. I also want to take time just right now and think about and thank our sponsor, UltraCamp. Exclusive to CampHacker listeners, everyone can discover the 10 best marketing tips and tools for camps by visiting ultracampmanagement.com/camphacker. And when you're there, you can download UltraCamp's free guide, The Marketing Toolbox. when you feel like you spend so much time in the office or tied to your computer, you're missing out on camp, then you have a systems problem. And the folks at AlterCamp know that you didn't get into camping just to be a paperwork or computer person. So they created the software to help camp professionals like yourself handle registrations quickly and efficiently, to find the information you need quickly, to get back to the things that you got into this camp work for. So AlterCamp has powerful tools that allow you to automate your billing, create custom reports, manage your hiring process, including integrated background checks, communicate with your customers and donors, and add the efficiency of automation so you can have a platform that will work for you. AlterCamp's goal is to provide resources so their clients can spend more time in camp doing what they do best. If this doesn't sound like your registration software, don't you think it should? Visit their website, altercampmanagement.com/camphacker, and set up a time to chat. They look forward to hearing you and talking to you. That means that we are now on to our tool of the week. If you have been a new CampHacker listener and drawn in by the topic we're talking about today, or someone referred you to this, the tool of the week is us bringing some tool that makes us a better camp director. And so, Chris, I'm going to start with you. What are you thinking about as a good tool of the week for today?
So glad we started with me. I have been reading this book. It's called Thanks for the Feedback. It is the science and art of receiving feedback well. I cannot stress enough how much, just like personally, I love feedback. I love it. You know, my favorite thing is to walk into a room and people were talking about me. I don't care what they're saying. It's information I would not have had if I didn't overhear it, you know? And I'm always like, oh, what? I don't care if you think I'm a jerk. The fact that you think I'm a jerk is valuable information to me. I've always felt that way. And this book like really doubles down on that. The idea that we're receiving feedback all the time. Sometimes it's not always the way that we want. Sometimes it's not always what we want, but it's useful. And how to really set your mind up in order to be able to receive feedback from multiple sources in multiple different ways. And how also to reject feedback when it's simply wrong or inaccurate, but measuring that as opposed to becoming super defensive and ignoring things. On top of that, how to give feedback to like your team, to your boss, to your employees, to your partner, to your parents, you know, that is helpful to them and the relationship that you're having. It breaks it down really well. I recommend it to everybody. If you're a camp director, just read it. I think it should be required reading. Like reading this has really, I'm looking at the way that we're doing training and also the way that we're doing in-service evaluations. Mm-hmm. So I think it's going to be super helpful. I think it would help you if giving feedback or receiving feedback is something that you struggle with, start here. And by the way, I mean, that's everybody. Everyone struggles with receiving feedback. So check it out. Thanks for the Feedback by Douglas Stone and Sheila Heen.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Chris. What's it for you, Joe?
This week, mine is Sugru, which is moldable glue / plastic. And it is a product you can buy on Amazon now. It is something we keep at camp, and it can be used as a reference on, it can be used to mold. It's like a Play-Doh almost that you take out of a sealed package, and you heat it up a little bit with your hand, you mold, and then you can mold it into any shape. You can create magnets with it. So if you put a magnet inside of it, then you can have a magnet hook on your, any metal surface. I have this great Reese's peanut butter cup tin that I'm showing on YouTube that I bought at the Hershey store in Times Square, one of my only trips to New York City. And I wanted to make it, I hold paper clips in it. And so I wanted to just be able to throw paper clips at the lid and have them stick. And so I used Sugru to embed a magnet underneath. So when I throw something at the lid, it sticks. And then later on, I can take it off. So it's like a pin cushion for paper clips. We use them around camp for cords. So like if your phone cord or whatnot gets frayed, right at that end, you can put this moldable plastic. We use it we've used it in our cars to fix small things, and little feet on stuff that breaks. So it is worth its weight to keep a little bit in your, just a little bit of Sugru in your camp director's toolbox is awesome.
I love Sugru. I also keep some in my fridge, and it is an awesome one. I really like it. Gab, what's your tool today?
I believe that that certain systems aren't developed for everybody, and I feel that strongly about emails. I feel that the Gmail system is not made for everybody to use in an easy fashion. And so I've just discovered this weekend, and this is how excited I am about it. I discovered it on Sunday. We are now Tuesday, and it's helped me with my email game. Basically, it's called Spike, and you can use it on your iPhone, but also your Android and Windows and your computers, for everybody. A free service, and you can upgrade to a business class if you want to. But what I love about it, just right off the bat, is that it takes the emails that you have and visually turns them into text messages. And so for my eyes, it's a lot easier to read. So basically it has a little bubble over who's sending you the email. And then when I respond, there's another bubble that just comes out below it. And it also frames images, PDFs, Google Docs in a really neat way, just at the bottom. Everything's clean and tidy, and it's not distracting. And it also automatically, if it asks you to do this, I am shamelessly subscribed to a lot of newsletters to get deals, but never unsubscribe. So I have approximately over 40,000 emails unread. And when I used the system, it took all of my newsletters and put it into a folder system that's easy for me to access.
Nice.
And so now I only have 5,000 emails unread. So we're
so manageable. Yeah.
So much better, so there we go. Listen, if I'm using it and it works.
If I had 40,000 unread emails, I would grab a suitcase, throw my shit in it, and I'd leave town, never to be seen again. I'd be like, this is too much.
Hey, Gab, how many tabs do you keep open on your browser at a time?
Quite a few.
I wonder if that correlates to the number of unread
and
notifications.
There's no correlation. This is the only place where.
Oh man.
Spike, it works.
Perfect. I will remind everybody that if you go to camphacker.tv/podcast, you can find the show notes there. This is episode 161, and you can find the links to all of these things when you hear about them. My tool of the week is an idea as much as it is a thing. We have noticed that when my wife Beth's mom comes and stays with us, she will stand in a certain corner of the kitchen and look. And she is looking at our digital photo frame that we have on our counter. Ours is a Nest Home, the small one. We're setting timers on it and stuff, but I have it set up to play family photos. If you've ever seen us on YouTube, you know that I often have camp photos that I've taken on the TV behind me playing while we're doing this. And this idea that I'm just looking for little motivational things, and just the idea that you could have some sort of screen, old phone that's plugged, has no battery, that's just plugged in all the time, that you have on your desk, or something that allows you to be reminded of what you do, like set up Google Photos. So there's one particular folder with your best ever, most emotional camp moments, and it's there so that you get a little constant reminder. Don't have the photos change particularly fast, like every couple of minutes, something that wouldn't necessarily distract you, but just there that there's some reminder. Just thinking about Beth's mom being reminded of all family stuff because she's seeing them on this frame, versus digital photos that she gets by email, but has no way to look at in her own house. We fixed that over Christmas, but it's such an easy thing to do to set that up with Google on any screen of any kind. It doesn't use a lot of processing power. If you have an old phone that the screen's still good on, or an old tablet that won't do anything else, it'll probably do this. So that, I think, is a motivation of like, oh, I love those camp moments. This is why I'm doing what I'm doing. Having that constant and near you and available, hopefully can be quite motivating. I certainly have found that it is the case for us, and love it for that reason. That brings us to the end. I want to take 1 second before we go and draw your attention to one other Go Camp Pro podcast. You can subscribe on the same app that you're listening to CampHacker on. Today, I want to focus on Gabz' other podcast, Camp Code. And if you are thinking about staff training and a bit stuck or looking for ways to expand your definitions of what training are or new ideas, go to Camp Code. We're coming up on 100 episodes of Camp Code. We'll be recording shortly. And it's just when we first started talking about Camp Code, I never would have thought there could be 100 episodes worth of talking points about staff training. And there have been that, and there will be so many more. So please go check that out. It'll make your life easier. As a camp leader, when you're planning your staff training, you can check out our Camp Code podcast. And thanks to Gab for that amazing contribution to the industry, along with Ruby and Beth, of course. So I want to thank each of the three of you for being here. Appreciate all of your wisdom. I'm going to encourage the people to go to camphacker.tv/podcast to find the notes to get a hold of Joe, Gabz, and Chris. And I will take us out of here by saying, thanks for the evening, friends.